Clinton Cash is the name of the book. Peter Schweizer is the author. He joins us from Tallahassee. Mr. Schweizer, on page 183 of your book, you write that the Clintons are perhaps the most politically sophisticated public figures of their generation. They know how things work in the corridors of power and around the world. They know that foreign governments are trying to influence American foreign policy, and they know that bribery is rampant around the world. They have numerous avenues for making money. Some of those avenues might not be as lucrative as giving a $700,000 speech in Nigeria, but they would be much cleaner.
Yes, I think that one of the defenses you hear from the Clinton camp is that they're unaware of certain things, or perhaps that there's nothing seriously afoot with all this money flowing to the Clinton Foundation or to them in the form of speaking fees. But the bottom line is they've been players on the international stage for a long time, and a lot of the people that contribute to the Clinton Foundation, that pay for speeches by Bill Clinton, they're not an insurance company in the UK or a media company in Germany. These are companies that operate in places like Nigeria, the Congo, South America, and some of these individuals have, let's say, sketchy histories as it relates to issues involving financial crimes. So, I think the Clintons are not ones, who would be shocked that there's gambling going on, as it was said in the film. They know exactly what's going on, and I think that's what's so troubling, that they don't seem to have a filter that prevents them from taking money from some, pretty sketchy characters.
Why don't some of these foreign governments or foreign leaders give money directly to their own countries where it's needed, rather than give it to the Clinton Foundation?
That's a great question, Peter. The late Christopher Hitchens, a liberal writer, asked that very question and wondered, why is it you have these oligarchs in the third world in places like India or in Africa? Why are they sending multi-million-dollar checks 10,000 miles away to New York, to the Clinton Foundation, ostensibly to send that money back to do work in their own countries? And the answer that Hitchens, I think, basically gave was, it's because it was a way of influence peddling with, a former president and a former president whose wife is first a powerful senator and then the Secretary of State. And that's what I think is so mystifying. I mean, if you are in India, for example, and you are concerned about development, poverty, AIDS, you name it, it really does not make a whole lot of sense to send it to New York City. Why not work with a lot of the great legitimate charities that are in India that are doing that very same thing? And that's just one of the things, in addition to the timing of these donations, that I think is so puzzling.
Kazakhstan. Walk us through what happened in Kazakhstan.
So Kazakhstan is in Central Asia. It is a oppressive government that has ruled there since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And they are very rich in minerals. And one of the things that they have is a lot of uranium, which of course fuels civilian nuclear technology and also military nuclear technology. And in September of 2005, Bill Clinton is there with Frank Giustra, this Canadian mining investor. Giustra wants uranium concessions. Bill Clinton says very nice things about the dictator of Kazakhstan. And in a couple of days, Frank Giustra is granted those uranium concessions. Weeks later, Frank Giustra sends $30 million to the Clinton Foundation. Now, this is where it starts to get very interesting, if that's not interesting enough. This uranium deposit becomes part of a company called Uranium One. Uranium One is a Canadian company, and they start acquiring uranium rights in the United States. What's also interesting is this is a small uranium company, but not only Frank Giustra, but 8 other individuals connected with this company also start making major contributions to the Clinton Foundation. The chairman, Ian Telfer, writes multi-million-dollar checks. Those contributions were never disclosed by the Clinton Foundation. We found them in Canadian tax records. The financiers that are involved in the company are major Clinton Foundation contributors. contributors. You've got a shareholder named Frank Holmes, who's not only a shareholder in Uranium One, he is also a advisor to the Clinton Foundation and a major donor to the Clinton Foundation. All these assets are accumulated, all this money is flowing to the Clinton Foundation, and then the Russian government arrives and says, we want to buy Uranium One because they have had a long interest in cornering the uranium market. This is a personal desire of Vladimir Putin. He actually authorizes the release of funds to buy this uranium company. In order for Russia to acquire what amounts to 20% or 25% of all the uranium assets in the United States, it requires federal government approval. There's a process called CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, that requires a number of government agencies, including the State Department, to sign off on this deal. They do sign off on the deal. What I think is troubling about Hillary Clinton in the midst of all this is that no other government agency that approves this is headed by somebody who's received $145 million to their foundation from 9 individuals connected with this firm. The second thing that's troubling is that Hillary Clinton had a history up to this point of opposing precisely these kinds of deals. In other words, where a foreign government wanted to buy a critical industry in the United States. So both of those things, I think, raise a lot of questions about what her involvement was in this. The Clinton campaign, of course, says that she had no knowledge of this, she was not involved in this. With national polls showing that more than half of the American people question her trustworthiness and honesty, I don't think her verbal statement on this is going to be enough. And I think there needs to be, further investigation to see what precisely the role was. I think, Peter, if 3 years from now we had a Secretary of Defense who had a private foundation that received $145 million from shareholders in a foreign company that had business before the Pentagon, it would not be enough to just say, did you do anything to help them? There would be an investigation, and I think there should be here.
Page 5 of your book, given my previous focus on bipartisan self-dealing and corruption, why am I now focused on one couple, you write? Do I simply have it in for Bill and Hillary? Am I somehow trying to derail her prospects of being elected president in 2016? What's the answer to that question, Mr. Schweizer?
Well, the answer is that the last 5-6 years, my writing and research has been focused on following the money in politics. So in Throw Them All Out, I wrote about insider trading, members of Congress, both political parties, how there was this pattern of stock trades they were engaging in. In a book that followed up that called Extortion, I looked at what I regard as extortive fundraising practices by political parties on both sides. I got the displeasure of John Boehner as a result of that book. The Clintons are unique and fit into this pattern. No post-presidency has been marked by as much money-making as Bill Clinton has engaged in. They took in between 2001 and 2012 some $136 million. That's unprecedented in scale and in scope. But the second thing that I think warrants particular discussion here is they've created a new model. And this model, if it is allowed to continue and it is successful, is going to be adopted by others. And the model is basically getting around rules and laws that we have in place that prevent foreign entities from influencing American politics. If you're a foreign company, you cannot give campaign contributions in American political elections. You can't give to a political action committee. But with the Clinton Foundation and with this ability to pay speaking fees to the spouse of the Secretary of State, foreign entities now have a way of giving money to families of elected officials in the hopes of influencing them. And I think that is a very, very troubling development.
Peter Schweizer, as you know, Hillary for America and Media Matters have both come out with lists of what they say are errors that you made in Clinton cash.
Yeah.
From Hillary for America, the entire premise of the book has been widely debunked. Hillary Clinton did not have veto power over uranium deal, etc. From Media Matters, Schweizer admitted he omitted key information about Clinton Foundation donor. Schweizer's Boeing accusation has no evidence. Is there anything that you think Hillary for America or Media Matters or any other group has gotten right about an error you made in this book?
No, I mean, what's surprising is they say that the book is a dud, but their actions don't indicate that's what they really believe. And if you look at the list of the errors, and I'm glad, if callers want to bring them up, I'm glad to go into detail on every of them, it's a classic example of misdirection. I mean, one of the things in the video that they put out from Brian Fallon, the spokesman, was this statement that in this uranium deal, well, the shareholder, Frank Justrich, sold his shares in the company before Hillary Clinton became Secretary of State. And I point that out in the book. We don't know that if he has shares or not. The problem is Brian Fallon doesn't talk about the 8 other individuals who are giving to the Clinton Foundation, who are shareholders in the deal, who are the chairman of the company, who are engaged with that company, who are giving to the Clinton Foundation at the very time that the State Department is considering this deal. So they want to selectively try to steer the conversation in one way without looking at the larger facts. And they're hoping that people won't actually read the narrative of the book and that they'll just sort of take their word for it, which I think really is quite remarkable on their part.
Clinton Cash is the name of the book. Peter Schweizer is the author. The phone number